Non-duality. Non-duality meaning simply not two. So what is this not two refer to? Well, if we just go to our simple and immediate experience, we can investigate this directly right now. Now, before we start, I want to say that this is really about a direct mode of experiencing this practice, this description you're going to hear. It's not about concepts at all. So if you find yourself wanting to argue and say, oh no, the eyes are functioning this way and the brain does this, and then the thoughts are propagated through neurons or whatever, just understand that that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about concepts. We're not talking about conceptual mechanisms and so forth. We're talking about the nature of your direct experience. The reason I say this is because invariably when I make videos like this, there will be comments with people wanting to sort of argue with what I'm saying as if I'm making a philosophical claim. I'm not making philosophical claims. I'm actually showing you how to look directly into your experience. And if you do this deeply enough and vigilantly enough, particularly after awakening, then the non-dual clarity will arise. It will suddenly elucidate itself. It's just obvious. So when we say non-dual, not two, we're referring to a sort of correction to the usual way we perceive. Or I could say that what I'm talking about when I say non-dual is the usual state of experiencing. The usual state of experiencing is non-dualistic. It really does not have any sort of boundaries, any center or edge, even form. But the mind's usual way of putting things together and then the identity around those mental structures make it appear anything other than non-dual. So what reality looks like often to somebody who is not clear on this particular point is that there's a world out there in front of me, and there's a me here, maybe back here, even behind the face or behind the eyes, somewhere with an inner world. And my inner world is in clear opposition to the outer world. They're two very different experiences. And what I perceive as the outer world is something that's actually existing, for sure. And I'm just one part of that, or I'm separate from it, but I'm one of a whole bunch of other parts of it that walk around with senses of agency that interact with the world, can make effects on the world, can choose, and so forth. That experience feels very real to the dualistic mind. And to the degree that we're identified with the mind, it will feel very real to the sense of you as you take yourself to be. So as I often say, when I'm doing non-duality pointings like this, you can do it at any time you want if you feel inclined or it feels relevant to you, but just know that it's not going to clarify to the point of non-dual realization ongoing without an awakening, without an initial awakening. And that's why I have playlists called Basics of Awakening and Awakening Approaches and so forth. So just know that this can become frustrating actually, because you can get tastes of it doing these exercises, but it's not going to stabilize without an awakening. It just won't happen. And that has to do with the nature of identity itself. As long as we're identifying with mind and thought structures, it's going to elude you as a realization, not necessarily as an experience. We can also get these experiences through substances, through psychedelics and so forth. But again, those are experiential. They can be extreme experiences. They can be very altered, or what we feel like are very altered. And yet on the other side, everything still feels rather dualistic. So this is about dissolving that filter once and for all. So not two. Again, just look into your experience right now visually and see what arises there or what appears. Is there an appearance of duality? Is there an appearance of something being pushed outward that looks like an outer world? Now, instead of an outer world, which may sound sort of conceptual, just look at the objects in the room or the computer screen in front of you or the phone or whatever it is. Look at a picture on the wall, look at a lamp, anything. And just recognize that in that direct experience, you may or may not perceive distance. You may or may not perceive duality, meaning that is an object, which sort of backward extrapolates me into the subject. That may or may not be happening, or may not be appearing. But just be honest with yourself as far as what is actually appearing here, right? When I say direct experience or immediate experience, I'm actually referring to experience without perceptual distortions or without conclusions and so forth. But it may for quite a while feel like those conclusions or those perceptions are actually part of the experience. So don't just learn what I'm saying. Don't just learn that, oh, okay, distance is really a perceptual filter, and believe it, and then become identified, incorporate that into that mind-identified identity structure. That doesn't help, right? It's really about seeing directly what's actually happening. So don't fool yourself. If you're experiencing duality, then be clear on that, right? So if it appears that objects are literally in front of you and they're literally separate from you, if that feels fundamentally true, then that's what I'm talking about. And the way to look into this is to, first of all, just make an effort to recognize the nature of the raw visual experience. If nothing else, just take in the raw visual experience as if you opened your eyes for the first time right now. Maybe you're an infant. You've never been taught the name of anything. You have no sense of self. You have no sense of body. You don't know what a body is. You don't know what bodies are. You don't know what mom or dad are. You don't even know what colors are. You just see this, right? That's what I want you to drop into. Just notice that there is a visual experience in the raw data that may or may not have any labels, any perception of distance or form, right? But recognizing the raw nature of it is critical. Whether or not that other part is happening, whether or not there's a dualistic construct overlying, notice there is raw data, raw visual data, okay? Now that's what I mean by actual experience. If you want another analogy of what I mean by this raw data, it would be something like if I were to shine some kind of image with a projector on the wall, say the image of a rabbit, right? And you're looking at it and I say, what is this that you're seeing? And I say, and you say it's a rabbit, right? And then I say, well, close your eyes. And then I kind of change the image and I rearrange it to something that's indescribable, but it has all the same elements, right? It's got fur, it's white, let's say, it has similar lines and colors and shades and shapes, but it's all mixed up and you don't actually recognize it as a rabbit or anything specific at all. And I say, open your eyes. What do you see? Now you're just going to say, well, I just see like colors and forms and lines and shapes and stuff, right? But your mind can't actually land on an object that is. Like your mind can't tell you, oh, that's a so-and-so, right? That's an XYZ. This is what I mean by the raw data. It's like stepping back to seeing what's merely seen. Seeing what's merely seen, not seeing what's seen and then processed into something that's an object out there and you're back here, right? Those are extra steps, and that's the kind of point of this. So looking into this experience, into this immediate experience, just as it is, ask yourself, is there distance here? Separation? Is there a body back here and an object out there? If it appears to be the case that there is, then just ask yourself, where is the out there-ness? Where am I getting the evidence for the out there-ness? What is the data that I'm referring to when I say there's out there-ness? And as I ask these questions, I want you to keep your attention in that raw visual data primarily, just the raw visual data. For instance, could you perceive that there's an out there without the thought out there, like without the words, right? Maybe, maybe not, but it gets you closer to realize that there is this sort of conceptual overlay, right? It can be a label, a description, an explanation, but that conceptual overlay doesn't have to be here, right? Without those thoughts, if you don't move your eyes, that visual experience doesn't change and it doesn't go anywhere. It remains exactly as it was a second ago, right? So the visual experience is just as it is, and that's the point. So you can ask, well, where is the distance appearing? Where's the experience of a distance appearing, or is it appearing at all, right? And see what happens when you ask this question. Does the mind get revved up, like the conceptual mind, and start arguing for Well, yeah, there's distance, obviously, because I know that's out here and I know this is in here and, yada, yada. Again, if there's a lot of that where it's like, I know this, I know that, those are thoughts. Those are definitely thoughts, right? Do you think the visual experience is thinking? No, it's just that, right? It's just what it is. It's not actually doing that thinking. It's not doing that analysis of itself, obviously, right? Because any being could be looking at that visual experience and it's still going to be there. It may, say, appear different to a different set of senses, but it's there, right? Whatever that appearance is, it's appearing. It's merely appearing. So the interpretation of what it is obviously is secondary to it. Again, if you're an infant, you have no words for that. If you're a toddler, you might have a simple label for it. Once you have a sense of self, then it'll feel like an object out there. As you grow older, you could explain it in more detail. But the truth of it is the visual experience is just what it is and always has been, right? This is what we're getting at when we talk about non-duality. So you could ask yourself, just as a sort of pointer or koan, you could ask, what is merely appearing? Right now, what is merely appearing? And just notice it. Let it overtake you. Let it fill up the environment. Let it be the only thing that there is. What is merely appearing? Also, you can take this out of this video. You can take a walk outside, looking at trees, looking at the ground, walking your dog, whatever you do. You can ask the same question. What is merely appearing right now? Asking the question, looking at the visual primary experience for and as the answer, not conceptualizing. What is merely appearing? Here, what is merely appearing? Also, you could just turn your head to something that is maybe not as clear of an object, right? You could look at an abstract painting. What is merely appearing? Look at the sky, just the shades of the sky, right? What is merely appearing? Sometimes we play the game by looking at the sky and trying to guess what the clouds look like and what animals and all that sort of thing, right? But it's kind of funny to think that we do that, right? Because we quote unquote know that that's not really an animal, it's a cloud, right? But now I'm asking you, do you even know it's a cloud? Like, do you know anything about that other than it's just what it is? Ultimately, right? Primarily the information, primarily the experience, primarily the appearance is mere appearance. And the reason I keep saying that is the more I dial you into that, or the more you dial yourself into that, the clearer this will get. And this can hit suddenly, like it can shift and just not shift back. It can just suddenly, everything is obviously this way. It's happened many times when I give these talks to people in retreats, people reading my book, and certain lines have told me it's happened. It doesn't have to be my material. It can happen with anyone who knows how to point to this directly, but that shift can just occur suddenly. It can also kind of occur slowly. It can seem to come and go for a while, and then all of a sudden it's just very clear. It can also be sort of partially clear for some time, and then all of a sudden it gets far clearer. So this can happen in a lot of different ways. But the key is really to just keep looking into that primary visual experience. The one question I've come up with so far is, what is merely appearing? I think this is a great question. You could also ask yourself, where is this appearance? And you're notably not looking for a thought for the answer, because the thought will always give you some smarty pants answer. The thought system thinks it knows everything, right? But it gets so much wrong, especially this. So instead of a thought answer, go to the experience again. Where is this? Where is this appearing right now? Right? Is it appearing out there? Is it appearing in here? Somewhere in between? Is it appearing everywhere? Or do all of these descriptions fall short? I would suggest that that's the case, that ultimately, if you keep asking the question, where is this appearing? It'll become very clear what non-dual really means. I can't even describe what non-dual means. It's not even describable by saying not two, no subject-object, no form, no separation. I can say all those, boundlessness, and they're accurate, but experientially very unsatisfying unless the realization is there. If the realization's there, you won't care about the words. You'll know what they mean now, but you won't care about the words. It's just obvious. And you also know it's indescribable, right? Because descriptions require certain assumptions. And one of the assumptions that are required for descriptions like this to work is the idea of space. The idea of space the idea of objects, the idea of separation. It's built into all this language about time and distance and actual existing and so forth. You'll see none of that's true now. So again, don't settle for anything other than the actual experience, just as it is, just where it is. So those are two questions you can ask. Again, spend time with this, right? Don't just listen to this video and assume that that's going to do the trick. It might, but more than likely, continuing to work in this space can be really helpful. So another question you can ask is, where am I getting the perception of distance? Where am I picking up the perception of distance right now in this visual, right? In this field of colors and forms and lines and shades. Where am I getting the perception of distance? Where is that? Where is that coming into play? Where is it getting added? Is it in the blue shades right there? Is it in the white over here? Is it in the colors up there? Like where is that sense of distance appearing? Where am I getting that information? You'll find out you're not getting it from the visual experience. Strangely, very strangely, but you're just not, because it's not there. But keep asking, right? So those are 3 different questions you can do to work with this. I'd be curious to see what happens or which ones work for you. If you actually take this up, let me know.